They told me they were preparing me for 15 years behind a locked bedroom door. My body became their workshop of horror. And now at 76, I finally dare to speak. Good morning, my dear viewers. What a blessing to sit here and talk with you today. My name is Dorothy Parker. I'm 76 years old and I live in Bridgewater, Pennsylvania. A small town with cold winters that ache in these old bones, but warm hearts that still manage to thaw me out. My favorite pastime now is quilting. Look at this patchwork lying on my lap. Every little square of fabric carries its own story, just like our lives, stitched together piece by piece over the years. I began quilting after my grandchildren were born. I wanted each of them to have something from their grandmother, something warm for cold nights. My days start early before sunrise. I brew my strong coffee the old way, filtered through cloth, then sit here on my porch where I am right now, and sew while the birds sing in the maple tree. This is the peace God handed me after a storm that lasted decades. You see, my husband, God rest his soul, used to say, "Your hands are blessed, Dottie. They turn scraps into treasures." And so I keep turning scraps of fabric into quilts, memories into stories, and pain into lessons. And you, my dear viewers watching this now, tell me in the comments. From what little town are you tuning in? What time of day is it where you are? Are you drinking morning coffee, resting after lunch, or getting ready for bed? I read every comment carefully. It warms me to know who takes a moment out of their life to listen to an old woman. Because today I want to tell you a story I've kept for so long. A story about preparation, but not the kind you imagine when you think of a young girl being prepared for marriage. No, this was a kind of preparation no girl should ever endure. It's taken me a lifetime to find the courage to speak, but age has taught me that sharing our pain can help heal someone else's wounds. My story begins long ago in a small wooden house in rural Kentucky, where the heat was as heavy as the traditions that trapped so many women in silence. I was born in Mayfield, Kentucky in 1949. Back then the town was known for its tobacco fields, but to me it was just a patch of red clay soil under an endless blue sky. My father, Joseph Parker, was a tall man with sun-browned skin and hands callous from hard field work. His dark eyes pierced through you when he was angry, and he was angry often. My mother, Alberta, was tiny, her hair always pulled into a tight bun, speaking little and obeying much. She walked as if she was always asking permission to exist. Our house stood 2 miles down a dirt road you could only reach by wagon or on foot. It had 2 bedrooms, theirs and mine, a room that doubled as kitchen and living room, and a large yard where my mother grew vegetables and greens. We had no luxuries, but we never lacked food. Days began before sunrise. Mama lit the stove to brew coffee while Daddy prepared for the fields. I woke to the smell of it all: coffee, iron skillets, the rustle of kindling. My chores were to sweep the yard, feed the chickens, help with the washing. Then I'd go to school, a makeshift class in a church where Miss Irene taught all the local children. I loved learning, especially reading. Books took me far away from our life. We had few neighbors. Sometimes on Sundays after church I'd play with Mr. Olson's daughters, Daisy and Thelma, at their nearby farm. We played Ring Around the Rosie, built pretend houses out of corn husks, made dolls from cobs. That joy never lasted long. Soon Daddy's truck would appear and he'd say it was time to come home. Around my 9th birthday I started noticing how different our family felt from others. When we went to town, I saw mothers laughing with their daughters, fathers playing with their children. In our home words were weighed, gestures restrained, eyes always shadowed. Once a week, usually Saturday nights after supper, my father shut all the windows despite the heat. He'd light the oil lamp in their bedroom, and the 2 of them would stay inside for hours, talking in low voices. I'd lie in my small bed, hearing the whisper of their voices. Sometimes I even heard my name. At the Harvest Festival when I was 10, we were all on the town square, music, food, people dancing. A lady came up to Mama and said, "Alberta, your little girl is becoming a young woman. Soon she'll blossom." Mama went pale. Daddy stepped forward, grabbed my hand, and led us home before the parade even started. That night their voices were louder than usual. "It's time, Alberta," my father said. "She needs to learn before it's too late." The following week my routine changed. Mama started training me more carefully in housework. "A woman must know how to keep a home, how to please her husband," she repeated. Daddy watched from the doorway with a look that made my skin crawl. At night the whispers in their room lasted longer. At school Miss Irene began looking at me differently. One afternoon she asked, "Dorothy, is everything all right at home?" I didn't understand the question. "Everything's fine, Miss Irene," I said. She took my hands and said quietly, "If you ever need to talk, I'm here." Those words lingered in my head for days. Life at Daisy and Thelma's felt like another planet. Their mother sang while she worked. Their father brought candy back from town. It was nothing like my home where laughter was rare as rain in August. When I turned 12 on a hot Sunday, we came back from church and my parents felt different. Daddy more serious than usual, Mama's eyes red. After lunch he called me over. "Dorothy, you're no longer a child. It's time you learned what a woman must know to be a good wife. From today you'll receive special lessons." I didn't understand, but a knot formed in my stomach that wasn't hunger. A week later, a Thursday evening after supper of ham and beans, Daddy locked the front door and windows. He looked at Mama and nodded. She stood up silently, took my hand and said, "Come, daughter. We'll begin your preparation." I followed them to their bedroom. My legs felt heavy, as if they carried stones. The oil lamp cast yellow light, making strange shadows on the walls. Daddy sat at the edge of the bed while Mama placed me in front of him. "Dorothy," my father began in the voice you didn't interrupt, "every young girl must learn to be a good wife before marriage. Your mother and I will teach you everything you need to know to please your future husband. It's our duty as parents." Mama stood beside him, eyes on the floor, fingers trembling as they adjusted her apron. "Pay attention to what your father teaches you," she murmured. "It's for your own good." What happened that night, and in the nights that followed, stayed locked within those walls and etched invisible scars on my soul. These weren't lessons in cooking or sewing. They were lessons in silence, in obedience, in how a woman should behave to satisfy a man. "We're preparing you for your husband. He'll thank us," my father repeated at the end of each lesson, while Mama wiped my tears with a damp cloth and whispered prayers that didn't seem to reach anywhere. Thursday nights became a nightmare. I counted down to each week, praying for something, anything, to stop the day from coming. The next mornings I went to school with red eyes and a heavy heart, unable to focus on Miss Irene's lessons. One such morning she called me aside again. "Dorothy, something's hurting you, isn't it?" I shook my head, but my eyes betrayed me. "You can trust me," she insisted. Words clogged my throat. How could I explain what even I didn't fully understand? Fear sealed my lips. "If you ever want to talk, I'll be here," she said, squeezing my hand. I ran out, terrified that the words might spill and bring even more trouble. At 14 my body changed with adolescence, and the lessons intensified. Mama taught me how to dress, how to walk, how to serve at the table. "A man likes a woman who knows her place," she said, showing me how to lower my head in submission. "Never question your husband. Never deny him. That's how marriage is kept." And to the outside world we looked like a normal family. At church Daddy smiled and greeted the pastor. Mama received compliments for having such a well-behaved daughter. "Dorothy's the picture of a proper girl," the ladies said. If only they knew the cost of that behavior. Life continued beyond that house. Mayfield grew with the tobacco industry. New families arrived. Business boomed. I watched from afar, like someone peering through a fogged window, unable to truly take part. My friends Daisy and Thelma talked about boys, dances, dreams of the future. I could barely imagine a future beyond those walls. Slowly I distanced myself from them, ashamed of the reality at home. By 16 an event shifted everything. Market day in Mayfield was supposed to be ordinary, but that day, it changed the course of my life. Mama took me along to help carry groceries. While she bargained over tomatoes at Mr. Turner's stall, I slipped away toward the candy kiosk. I had a few pennies saved, just enough for a piece of molasses cookie, my secret indulgence. That's where I met him. He was tall with sun-browned skin, green eyes as deep as the Ohio River, and a smile that lit his whole face. He was buying molasses candy too, and when our eyes met, something inside me stirred. Something I'd never felt before. "What's the best sweet here?" he asked, looking right at me. For a moment I couldn't speak. No boy had ever spoken to me like that, with warmth instead of command. I dropped my eyes the way Mama taught me. "Miss Newcomb's molasses cookies," I said softly. They're the best in the county. Then I'll take two, he grinned. One for me, and one for the girl with the pretty eyes. I froze. No one had ever said anything like that to me. Not once in my life. I shook my head, whispering, I can't. Mama's waiting. He didn't push. But before I left, he asked my name. Dorothy, I answered, already retreating. I'm Theodore. But you can call me Theo. I'll be around a few weeks. Hope I see you again. I walked back to Mama, my heart beating so loud I thought she'd hear it. I didn't tell her about the boy, but his green eyes stayed with me all the way home. Over the next weeks, I invented reasons to go to town with Mama, and I did see him again 3 more times. Always quick, secret conversations, nothing more. But every word felt like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. On our last meeting, before he returned to Louisville, Theo pressed a folded note into my hand. Read it when you're alone. Keep it safe. That night, under the weak glow of the oil lamp, I opened it. Dorothy, I felt something special when I saw you. I'll come back for you in 2 months. If you feel the same, wait for me. Theo. I pressed the paper against my chest, tears streaming down. For the first time in years, hope felt real. 2 weeks later, during supper, Daddy cleared his throat. Important news. The son of Mr. Marlin from Louisville came to see me. He's interested in Dorothy. The boy's got good prospects. He'll be opening a store in town. Would be a fine marriage. My heart stopped. Louisville? Could it be? What's his name? I asked, barely containing myself. Theodore, Daddy said. He'll visit Sunday. If I approve, you'll be engaged. That night I cried quietly in bed. Not from despair, but from hope so fierce it hurt. Theo had found a way. A proper, respectable way to ask for me without arousing suspicion. He would be my way out. Sunday came. Theo arrived dressed neatly, carrying gifts. Fabric for Mama. A fine bottle of bourbon for Daddy. They talked in the parlor while I served coffee with my eyes lowered, as expected. But my heart was singing. Daddy accepted his courtship request with one condition. That we marry soon. Dorothy's ready to be a good wife, Daddy said with a look that made my stomach twist. We've been thorough in her education. Theo smiled, not knowing the true meaning behind those words. I'm sure she is, Mr. Parker. Folks in this county respect you for raising her well. That same day we were officially engaged. Theo would return in 2 weeks to plan the wedding, set for 3 months later. When he left, he caught my eyes just for a moment. In them I saw a silent promise. I'll get you out. But what Theo didn't know, what no one outside those walls knew, was that the lessons didn't stop because I was engaged. They grew harsher. It's more important than ever, Dorothy, Daddy said the next Thursday, leading me to their bedroom. Your fiancé must find a wife who knows how to please him. He'll thank us for this. The lessons became twice a week now, Tuesdays and Thursdays. My body ached constantly, my nights filled with nightmares. Every morning I forced myself to walk to school, praying no one could see the bruises behind my eyes, the knots in my throat. Miss Irene noticed. Dorothy, you're thinner. You look exhausted. Are you sick, child? No, Miss Irene, I whispered. It's just the wedding. She studied me long, searching my face. I hope this young man makes you happy. You deserve it. Her words cut deep. Did I deserve happiness? After everything they had done to me? A part of me feared I was ruined forever. Theo visited 2 more times before the wedding, always under Daddy's watchful eyes. He must have sensed something. Once, when we were alone for a few minutes in the yard, he asked, Are you all right, Dorothy? You seem so sad. If you don't want to marry me, just say. It's not that, I answered too quickly. Fear of losing him seized me. I'm just nervous. He smiled, that easy smile, the one that melted me. You never have to be afraid of me. I'll make you happy. Promise. 3 more weeks, and you'll be Mrs. Theodore Marlin. If only he knew the fear inside me wasn't of him, but of what my parents had turned me into. 1 week before the wedding, Daddy announced during supper. Tomorrow, a big rehearsal. We need to be sure you're truly ready for your husband. That night, lying in my narrow bed, staring at the straw ceiling, I prayed harder than I'd ever prayed in my life. I begged God, the Virgin Mary, every saint I could name. Please take me in my sleep. In this. Don't let tomorrow come. I hardly slept that night. I lay there, stiff as the boards beneath my mattress, listening to the crickets outside, the creak of the old house shifting in the wind, and the pounding of my own heart. I kept thinking, maybe morning won't come. Maybe God will answer my prayer and take me before sunrise. But dawn came anyway. Mama stirred the fire in the stove, humming faintly under her breath, though her hands trembled when she set my plate in front of me. Daddy ate in silence, sipping his coffee, the scrape of his fork on the plate making my skin crawl. Then he said, flat and cold, "Tonight's the rehearsal." I nodded, though my throat was too tight to swallow. That evening Mama closed the shutters. Daddy locked the door. The oil lamp flickered in the bedroom, throwing yellow light across the walls, long shadows bending and twisting like demons. "Sit," Daddy ordered. I obeyed. My body knew no other choice. Mama stood in the corner, wringing her apron, whispering prayers that seemed to die before they reached the ceiling. My father's voice filled the room. "You need to understand, Dorothy. A wife's duty is more than cooking and sewing. A wife's body belongs to her husband. If you defy him, you shame us all." His words sliced me open, but I kept still, the way I had trained myself. Stillness meant survival. That night was worse than any before. When it ended, I curled on the floor, clutching my knees, gasping for air. My mother dabbed my forehead with a wet cloth, tears spilling down her face. "Someday you'll thank us," Daddy muttered, blowing out the lamp, but I knew I never would. The next morning I walked to school with legs that felt carved from stone. Miss Irene noticed immediately. "Dorothy, child, what's wrong?" I opened my mouth but no sound came. Words clawed at my throat, desperate to escape, but fear strangled them. "If you ever need me," she whispered, pressing my hand, "I'll listen. I'll believe you." I nodded, tears burning behind my eyes, then ran before I lost the will to keep the secret. The days until the wedding blurred together. Mama sewed my trousseau, teaching me delicate stitches, her voice thin and weary. Daddy oversaw every detail like a general preparing for battle. "You mustn't fail him," he said each night. "Your husband must find you ready." And every Thursday, and now Tuesdays too, the lessons continued. But I clung to the thought of Theo. I embroidered our initials D&T onto towels and pillowcases. Each letter was a prayer, a promise to myself. Hold on. He'll come for you. He'll save you. When Theo returned 2 weeks before the wedding, I saw the concern in his green eyes. He smiled, yes, but his gaze lingered too long on my face, as if trying to read the truth I kept buried. "Dorothy, are you happy?" he asked while Daddy stepped out to fetch more coffee. "Yes," I whispered, because hope was all I had left. "I'm happy." But even as I said it, my hand shook so badly I had to grip the edge of my dress to hide it. Theo frowned. "You're trembling. If something's wrong, you can tell me." "No," I said quickly. "It's just nerves. Every girl gets nervous before her wedding." He touched my hand lightly, careful, gentle in a way no man had ever been with me. "You don't have to be afraid. Not with me." I wanted so desperately to believe him. 1 week before the wedding, Daddy announced new rules. No more trips to town for Dorothy. A bride must stay pure and prepared. Pure. The word nearly made me choke. Instead, I was trapped in that house, my world reduced to chores, sewing, and the rehearsals that broke me piece by piece. Mama grew quieter, her prayers more frantic. One evening, as she tucked my hair behind my ear, she whispered, "Hold on, Dorothy. Just hold on." For a fleeting moment, I thought she meant she wanted me free too. But then her eyes darted to Daddy, and she lowered her head. The Sunday before the wedding, the church was full of whispers. Neighbors congratulated my parents, telling them how proud they must be. "She's such a good girl," Mrs. Olson said, patting my hand. "So well behaved. You've raised her right." I forced a smile, but inside I screamed. If only they knew. If only anyone could see through the mask. But no one did. The night before the wedding, I sat by the window watching fireflies dance in the humid summer air. My trousseau lay folded neatly on the cedar chest, my veil draped over the chair. Theo's note was hidden beneath my mattress, edges worn from my fingers tracing it night after night. "I'll come back for you. Wait for me." I prayed he truly meant it. The wedding day dawned bright and hot. The little church in Mayfield smelled of lilies and wood polish. My dress was simple, white cotton with lace Mama stitched by hand. My veil scratched my cheeks, but I hardly noticed. Theo stood at the altar, his green eyes searching mine. When I reached him, he squeezed my hand. For a moment it felt real, like freedom, like the future I had dreamed. The pastor's words blurred. I heard only Theo's "I do" and my own voice, trembling but steady. "I do." The church erupted in applause. Daddy beamed. Mama dabbed her eyes. But in my chest, fear and hope battled like fire and rain. That night, in the small house Theo had prepared for us in town, I sat on the edge of the bed, heart pounding. He sat beside me, cautious, kind. "Dorothy, you don't need to be afraid of me," he said softly. "We'll go slow. We'll learn together." And then he reached for my hand. The moment his skin touched mine, I flinched. Violently. My body jerked away as if burned. Theo froze, hurt flashing across his face. "What is it? Did I do something wrong?" Tears welled in my eyes. I shook my head, but my chest heaved with sobs I couldn't hold back. "No," I whispered. "It's not you. It's me." Theo looked at me, puzzled, concern etching deep lines across his brow. "Dorothy," he said slowly, his voice low, steady. "What did they do to you?" Theo's words hung in the air like thunder before a storm. "What did they do to you?" I froze. My hands trembled in my lap, my throat locked tight. The question itself was a doorway, and I was terrified to open it. If I stepped through, everything I had hidden for years would come pouring out, and I didn't know what would happen next. Theo touched my cheek, gentle but firm enough to hold my gaze. "Dorothy," he whispered. "Please. You don't have to carry this alone anymore. Not with me." The kindness in his voice cracked me open. For the first time in years, words spilled out. Broken, halting, jagged like glass. They said they were preparing me. For you. For marriage. My voice shook so badly I could hardly form the syllables. Every week lessons in their room. They told me it was my duty, my obligation as a daughter and as a wife. That I should thank them someday. Theo's face went pale. His jaw clenched so tight I thought it might shatter. "Dorothy." His hands trembled as he pulled me close, though careful not to frighten me more. "My God. Your father, your mother, they." I nodded, choking on sobs. I didn't want it. I prayed for it to stop. But they said it was love. That it was for my future husband. Theo swore under his breath, a sound low and dangerous, nothing like the boyish voice he had used before. "This is not love. This is evil." I buried my face in his chest, tears soaking his shirt. For the first time I didn't feel shame for crying. The next morning, Theo insisted we ride into town early. "We're going to the pastor," he said. "And then the sheriff." Panic clawed through me. "No, please, if Daddy finds out, if Mama knows I told, he'll kill me, Theo." Theo gripped my shoulders. "Dorothy, listen to me. You're safe now. You're my wife. He can't touch you anymore." But fear had lived in my bones too long to believe that. "You don't know him. He'll come. He'll find me." Theo's eyes flashed with determination. "Then he'll answer to me." At the pastor's house I could barely speak. My throat closed up, words tangled with shame. But Theo told him everything. Every detail I had whispered the night before. Pastor Williams turned pale, removing his spectacles with a shaking hand. "Dear Lord. I never imagined Joseph capable of such wickedness. Will you help us?" Theo demanded. The pastor nodded slowly. "I will. But this must be handled carefully. Joseph Parker is respected in this town. People won't believe it easily. We need the sheriff." The sheriff, a broad man with heavy boots and a skeptical glare, listened in silence as Theo spoke. I sat trembling, my hands clasped so tight my nails dug into my skin. When Theo finished, the sheriff leaned back, sighing. "These are serious accusations, son. Against your wife's parents. You'd better be certain." "I am," Theo snapped. "And Dorothy will tell you herself." All eyes turned to me. My voice faltered, but Theo's hand on mine steadied me. I forced the words out, every syllable a knife cutting through years of silence. When I finished, the sheriff's jaw tightened. "I'll investigate. But this town, it protects its own. Don't expect justice quick, if at all." We returned home that afternoon. Theo tried to comfort me, but my fear only grew. I knew my father. He wouldn't sit quiet. He'd come looking. And I was right. That evening, as the sun dipped low and shadows stretched across the yard, I heard the creak of wagon wheels, the stomp of boots on the porch. A loud bang rattled the door. "Dorothy!" Daddy's voice roared. "Get out here." My body froze. Theo rose, fire blazing in his eyes. He opened the door before I could stop him. Joseph Parker stood tall, face red, fists clenched. Behind him, Mama hovered, wringing her hands, eyes downcast. "You lied to him," Daddy growled. His eyes cut through me like knives. "You dared to shame this family." Theo stepped between us. "She told the truth. And if you ever come near her again, you'll answer to me." My father's face twisted with rage. "You think you can steal my daughter, fill her head with poison, and turn her against her own blood? She's not your possession," Theo shot back. "She's my wife." For a moment I thought Daddy would strike him. His hand twitched at his side. But then he spat on the ground and sneered. "You'll regret this, boy. You don't know who you're dealing with." He turned, storming off the porch. Mama lingered a second longer, her eyes meeting mine. They glistened with tears, but she said nothing. Then she followed him into the dark. That night I lay awake, listening to the silence. Theo's arm was around me, steady, warm, but my mind replayed Daddy's words. "You'll regret this." The house felt fragile, thin walls against a storm that was coming. Days passed. The sheriff came once, asking questions, but nothing seemed to move forward. Neighbors whispered behind their hands. Some looked at me with pity, others with suspicion. Theo stood strong, but I could see the tension in his shoulders, the worry in his eyes. "We might have to leave," he said one morning, staring out the window. "Start fresh somewhere far from here." The thought both terrified and thrilled me. Escape, freedom, but also the risk of being hunted, of never truly being safe. A week later, I went to the market alone for the first time since the wedding. Theo insisted I'd be fine. "It's broad daylight. People are everywhere. No one will dare touch you." But as I picked through apples at Mr. Turner's stand, I felt eyes on me. Cold, familiar. I turned and there he was. Daddy. Standing across the street, arms folded, watching. Our eyes met. His lips curled into a smile that wasn't a smile at all. A shiver ran through me. I dropped the apple, my hands trembling. I knew then. He wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. The apple thudded to the ground and rolled into the dust. I didn't pick it up. My fingers wouldn't close. Daddy didn't move toward me. He just watched like a hunter sure the snare would do the work. Mr. Turner said something I didn't catch. The market hummed around us as if nothing had shifted, as if the earth hadn't tilted beneath my shoes. I went home with an empty basket. Theo met me on the porch, saw my face and didn't ask. He just pulled me close and waited until my shoulders stopped shaking. "He was at the market," I said finally. Theo's mouth hardened. "We leave. Tonight." "We can't," I whispered. "We don't have money yet. Your job, our lease, everything starts next month." He stared past me at the road, jaw working, then nodded once. "Then we make this town see. We make them hear you." "Can they?" I asked. "When their ears are plugged with the word respectable?" He lifted my chin. "If they won't listen to you, they'll listen to me. And if they won't listen to me, they'll listen to what I put in front of them." "What could that be?" "Truth," he said. "And witnesses." That afternoon he went to Pastor Williams. Then to Miss Irene. He returned after dark, smelling of dust and determination. "They'll stand with you," he said. "They'll sign statements. They'll speak to the sheriff again." And I wired my uncle in Louisville, "We've got money if we need to run." I pressed my forehead to his chest. "Running won't change what lives inside me." "Maybe not," he said softly, "but it could change who lives outside your door." We lay awake, listening to the night. Every creak sounded like boots on boards. Sometime after midnight, as I drifted toward a thin sleep, a pebble struck the window. Then another. Theo was up before me, peering through the curtain. "Stay here," he whispered, but I followed him anyway, bare feet silent. On the porch, a figure stepped from the shadows, small, wrapped in a shawl. My mother. "Dorothy," she breathed, arms tight around herself. "I shouldn't be here." Theo moved between us. If Joseph sent you. He doesn't know. Her eyes shifted past him to me, pleading. You must come home. Just for a night. Your father is very angry. He says you lied about him to the sheriff and the pastor. He says you made us shameful. If you come and speak to him, it will be better. My skin went cold. Better for who? For us, she whispered. For you. For you, Theo echoed, and it wasn't a question. Or for him. Mama's mouth trembled. Please. I remember being 12, her hand on my wrist, guiding me through that door. It's for your own good, she had said. And I had believed her because I had no one else to believe. Now I had Theo. And yet she was my mother. The girl part of me still wanted to follow. No, Theo said, firm as oak. If Joseph wants words, he can meet us at the pastor's office tomorrow at noon, with the sheriff present. Mama's eyes flinched. He won't go to them. He says they're liars now too. Then he won't go anywhere near my wife, Theo said. Leave Mrs. Parker. She lifted a shaking hand like a blessing that couldn't find a target, then turned and disappeared into the night. The road swallowed her footsteps. My breath finally came. She's a messenger, I said. He's the message. Theo nodded. And he didn't get what he wanted. But he did. He had put a string around my heart and tugged it toward the house where I learned to disappear. The next day, the sheriff stopped us on Main Street. Mrs. Marlin, he said, touching his hat. Mr. Parker came in this morning. Claims you're spreading slander. Says you're unwell. He's asking for your husband's cooperation to ensure your care. My care, I said, the words bitter as coal dust. The sheriff looked tired. I'm not saying he's right. I'm saying this is a small town. People talk. He brought men to vouch for him. Deacons. A business partner. You got folks vouching for you too, but it'll come down to what I can prove. What would proof look like to you? Theo asked. A miracle? A photograph? The sheriff rubbed his jaw. I wish it could be different, son. Before he could say more, Miss Irene crossed the street like the bell had rung and school was back in session. Sheriff, she said briskly, I'll be filing a formal affidavit this afternoon. And I'll gather other women who will stand with Dorothy. We've all seen something we tried not to see. We're done with that now. The sheriff tipped his hat again, discomfort creasing his face. Do what you feel is right, Miss Irene. I'll take your statement. He left. Miss Irene turned to me and squeezed my arm. When they try to call you crazy, remember. Your memory is sane. Let them scramble. I nodded, and for the first time in days I felt a crack in the wall. The crack didn't last. 2 nights later, Theo was late closing up at the general store that had given him a few weeks' work. I boiled beans at home, listening for his step. When the knock came, it wasn't his rhythm. 3 knocks slow. I opened the door and saw Pastor Williams, hat crushed in his hands. Dorothy, he said, there's been a fire out at the Parker farm. The barn's gone. Joseph says he says it was you. The room blurred. Me? He told half the town you're sick and vengeful, the pastor said, voice flinty for the first time since I'd known him. He says you want to ruin him. He's preparing to petition the county for a guardianship, to put you under your husband's control or, if he can swing it, under his. Under his. When Theo arrived, breathless and angry, Pastor Williams repeated it. Theo's fists clenched at his sides. Let him petition, he said. We'll be ready. But I knew what Daddy was doing, turning the town into a jury, me into the which they gladly drowned to save their own reflections. He was moving the net closer. That night we packed a small suitcase and hid it behind the bedroom door. If we go, I said, where? Louisville, Theo answered. My uncle's. Or farther. Nashville. Cincinnati. And if we stay? Then we fight. We lay side by side, awake in the dark, the suitcase a third body watching us breathe. The next morning, a letter waited on our porch, tucked under a stone. Theo picked it up. The handwriting was Mama's, small and tight, the ink smeared in places. Dorothy, come today at dusk. Alone. Your father is calmer. He will listen if it is only you. We must fix this before the sheriff turns us into a spectacle. Please come. I will meet you at the back door. Tend to what can still be mended. Mother. I read it twice, my throat closing. Alone. Dusk. Back door. The words were a map back to the scene of the crime disguised as mercy. You're not going, Theo said. I know, I said. I folded the letter and slipped it into my pocket anyway. But if I don't, he'll come here again. And again. Then let him, Theo said. With the pastor here. With the sheriff. In daylight. Do you think he'll give us daylight? I asked. We argued in circles until the clock bled into late afternoon. Finally Theo said, if you go, I go. If he wants a stage, we'll give him an audience. Then we need the right audience, I said. We went to Miss Irene. Then the pastor. They agreed to follow at a distance, to stand by the porch if needed. The sheriff promised to be in the area, which meant he might show if the wind blew justice in from the west. At dusk, with cicadas like a fever in the trees, we walked the dirt road to the Parker house. The sky burned red, then softened to the color of old bruises. Theo squeezed my hand. My stomach lurched as the house rose out of the trees. Tin roof, 2 rooms deep, the same as always except smaller, meaner. At the back door Mama waited, shawl over her shoulders. When she saw Theo, she shook her head. I told you alone. And I told you never again, I said. She stepped aside, eyes flicking toward the darkened kitchen. He's in the bedroom, she whispered. He says he will apologize if you will retract what you told the sheriff. He says we can be a family again. A family. The word scraped me raw. Theo touched my elbow. We're not here to make peace, he murmured. We're here to end it. We crossed the kitchen floor. Every board had a memory. Every knot in the wood knew my secrets. Mama closed the door behind us with a soft click that sounded like a key turning. In the hallway I stopped. The air changed there. The oil lamp glowed in the bedroom, throwing the same yellow half-light across the same walls. The same bed. The same shadows. My body remembered before my mind did. My breathing shortened. My palms went cold. Theo felt me sway and steadied me. Then we heard his voice. Dorothy, Daddy called low, coaxing. Come in and let's talk like we should have from the start. Theo went first. I stood in the doorway. Daddy sat on the edge of the bed, the way he always had. His boots were off like he planned to stay a while in his righteousness. His eyes flicked to Theo with contempt, then back to me with something more dangerous. That look of ownership he'd worn my whole life. Close the door, he said. No, I said. He smiled, small and cruel. Your mama said you were coming to your senses. I see she lied. Theo stepped forward. Mr. Parker, this ends now. You will not speak to my wife again without me present. You will retract your lies to the town. You will meet with the sheriff and answer his questions. Daddy's laugh slid along the walls. Boy, you think you can teach me about men's business? You think she belongs to you because the pastor said a few pretty words? His hand moved, not toward me but toward the table beside the bed. For a heartbeat I thought he might reach for a lamp, a Bible, any ordinary object. His fingers closed around a leather strap. My lungs forgot how to work. The room telescoped. Lamp strapped my father's face. Theo saw it too. His voice dropped iron suddenly. Put that down. Daddy's eyes never left mine. You tell him, he said lightly, as if instructing a child, as if the past were a parlor trick he could repeat at will. You tell your husband how you learned to be good. Something in me split. Maybe it had been splitting all along. A seam pulled one thread at a time, until only an outline held me together. No, I said. Not a whisper. Not a plea. A word with bones. Daddy stood, the strap loosening in his hand. Then I'll show him. He moved a step. Theo moved faster, placing himself between us. Enough, he said. Don't take another step toward her. Daddy snorted. You don't even know what you married. He lifted the strap like a teacher, patient, practiced. You never had to do the hard part. I did it for you. I made her a wife. By breaking her, Theo said, and his hands, which had always been so careful with me, were fists now. You broke a child and called it duty. You're both ungrateful, Daddy said gently, almost pitying now, and that softness, the softest he ever was the most terrifying thing about him. Let me show you how it works so you can thank me properly. He took another step. Joseph, Mama whispered from behind me, voice leaking through the doorway like water under a door. Please. He didn't look at her. He looked at the strap, at Theo, then at me, and smiled like a preacher about to deliver the lesson of his life. Theo reached for the doorknob with one hand and for me with the other. Dorothy, he said, never taking his eyes off my father, open the door wide. Why? So they can see. I stared at him. He tilted his head toward the porch, toward the low shapes I could just make out beyond the curtain. Miss Irene's hat, the pastor's shoulders, the outline of a man who might be the sheriff after all. The house held its breath. I pulled the door open. Now, Theo said, loud enough for the porch to hear. Show them, Mr. Parker. Show them what you mean by preparing a wife. Daddy's face changed then. Not with shame, not with fear, but with rage at being unmasked. His arm came up. Miss Irene's voice cut the night like a bell. Sheriff. Boots hit the porch. The pastor shouted my name. Mama sobbed my father's. Theo didn't move. And in the slice of a second before anything else happened, before the sheriff's hand reached the jamb, before the strap fell or was stopped, before the room decided who it would swallow and who it would spit out, I saw Theo's eyes, not afraid, not even angry, but steady and witnessing. For the first time, the man they had prepared me for stood in the doorway and saw exactly what happened behind those doors. The strap started down. Everything else rushed in. The strap froze in midair. Sheriff's hand clamped on Daddy's wrist before it could fall. For a split second the two men stood locked together, one fueled by years of unchecked power, the other by a town's law finally finding its mark. The leather slipped loose, thudding onto the floorboards like the end of a sermon. Miss Irene pushed past the sheriff, her voice sharp as a bell. Everyone saw. Everyone heard. No more secrets, Joseph Parker. Daddy jerked against the sheriff's grip, face red and twisted. She's mine. My blood. I made her fit for him. She owes me. I stepped forward then. My knees shook but my voice was clear. I don't owe you anything. Not my body. Not my silence. Not anymore. Mama crumpled against the wall, hands over her mouth. For the first time her eyes weren't pleading. They were wide open, staring at a truth she'd spent decades sweeping into corners. Theo slipped his hand into mine. You don't touch her again, he said to my father, steady as stone. You don't even look at her again. The sheriff pulled Daddy back, snapping cuffs around his wrists. The clink was louder than thunder. He read the charges out loud. Assault, endangerment, obstruction of justice, and the words filled the little house like hymns sung too long in silence. As they dragged him toward the door, Daddy spat at the floorboards. You'll see. She's broken. She's nothing. You can't fix what's already ruined. I met his eyes for the last time. You're wrong, I said. I'm not broken. I'm free. The sheriff led him out into the night. The cicadas roared louder, as if nature itself wanted to drown out his voice. The days that followed blurred. Statements were written, affidavits signed. The pastor testified. Miss Irene testified. Even Mama gave a halting account, half confession, half prayer for forgiveness. For the first time, I saw her not as a conspirator but as a woman trapped in fear, just as I had been. The town divided. Some whispered I was ungrateful, that I'd betrayed my own kin. But others, women mostly, looked at me differently now. Some stopped me in the market to squeeze my hand. Some couldn't meet my eyes but left baskets of eggs or bread on the porch. Truth had cracked something open. And cracks let the light in. Theo and I packed what little we owned and left Mayfield before the trial. Louisville took us in, noisy and alive, nothing like the hushed fields of my childhood. He worked days at his uncle's shop, and I pieced quilts at night, the needle steady in my hand again. Every stitch was a choice, not a command. Some nights the past rose up anyway. I'd wake with the strap in my dreams, my father's voice echoing. Theo would hold me until my breath slowed. You're here, he'd whisper. Not there. Not ever again. At 76, sitting on my porch in Bridgewater, coffee steaming beside me, I run my hands over the quilt on my lap. Each scrap of fabric carries a story. Joy, grief, survival stitched into pattern. People see a blanket. I see a life remade. When young women write to me after my broadcasts, when they say your story sounds like mine, I answer every single one. Because silence is how monsters live, And truth is how we starve them. The little girl who once believed she was being prepared for a husband grew into a woman who prepares others for freedom. My father was wrong. I wasn't broken. I was tempered. And every time I knot the last thread on a quilt, I whisper the words that carried me through fire. I'm not broken. I'm free.